Hello, everyone, and welcome to MetaCast, the podcast of the Meta-Analysis Academy. My name is Randerson Cardozo. I'm a cardiologist here in Boston. And in MetaCast, we discuss successful careers, people who've done extraordinarily well throughout their training and throughout their careers. And today I'm honored to welcome to the stage Ana Clara Tolentino. She's a nurse by background, but today she's a medical science liaison in a pharmaceutical company. She's going to tell us all about her job and her extraordinary career. So, Ana Clara, thank you so much for joining. It's an honor to have you here in MetaCast.
Well, thank you so much, Professor. The honor is all mine. I'm really glad to be here.
Wonderful. So, before I start asking Ana some questions, I just want to remind everyone that the MetaCast and Meta-Analysis Academy, this chat, they're not affiliated with the institutions where we both work. This is the opinions, and what we discuss here is exclusively our own opinion, does not necessarily reflect those of our employers. I also want to remind you to make sure to watch other episodes of the MetaCast, to subscribe to our channel, check out the Meta-Analysis Academy training course, join our wait list so you can learn how to do successful research. We're going to talk a lot about how research impacts careers today. So, Ana Clara, let's start with your job as a medical science liaison. Can you explain to our audience a little bit about what that is and what do you do, and then we'll start backwards and let you share where you're from and all of that. But what is a medical science liaison? What do you do?
Okay, so a medical science liaison works as a bridge between the pharmaceutical companies or biotech companies and the medical community. Our role as MSL is to have discussions with those key opinion leaders, healthcare providers on the disease state, the technology from that company, pharmaceutical company, but to bridge that knowledge in a way that is unbiased, that you can have a conversation peer-to-peer, which the main goal is to bring the best treatment and outcomes for the patients. So basically my role is, I talk a lot, so bear with me. It's part of my job to build these connections, but at the same time, study a lot, keep up to date with the innovations, what's happening out there, and totally not connected with sales. So my work is with science, help build new data with the clinicians, to publish, to help foster this relationship where we can bring the best for the patients and for the scientific community.
Amazing. And what's your day-to-day activities like? Like, just to describe to us what a typical day in your job would look like.
Okay. So, although I don't work with sales, so I have that freedom to have discussions that should not be connected specifically with my product, for example. It should be totally unbranded or just about the product itself.
About the science.
So generally clinicians would call me or would ask the sales team to reach out to me to ask off-label questions, for example, which sales team cannot answer. Or they want to brainstorm about, may I use this product for this and this specific way? Or I have this idea for a study. So my day, I would say, I try to organize my day in a way that I have conversations, either in person or over phone with clinicians to answer those questions, or to help design studies. And other days of my week, I travel and I go to those institutions. So I cover the New England region, which is from northern New Jersey up to Maine. So I visit physicians at these institutions. I also provide educational sessions for the residents, for the fellows, teaching the disease state, the product, but also have these conversations to bring, what's the data gap that you identify that maybe we can work together and publish.
That sounds like a fun job.
It is. It's a lot of work, a lot of pressure, but you need to love what you do. Yeah. I think the way how I express tells a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Do you participate in the research that the clinicians are doing or the industry is involved with, or not really?
It depends, because for compliance reasons, there are some, for example, if there is the investigator-initiated studies, This way, for this type of study, I cannot actively interfere with whatever the clinician wants to study, but I can support in terms of bringing the literature or brainstorming on the study design.
Gotcha.
But if the company wants to sponsor a randomized clinical trial, then I can directly participate.
That's fascinating. And we're going to talk about your background in a little bit, but you're a nurse by training, and then we're going to talk about your research earlier on in your career, how it ultimately led to this. But one key question that our audience is going to have is the following. There are healthcare professionals from all over the world, doctors, nurses, pharmacists, who want to come to the United States. Sometimes it's personal reasons, sometimes it's professional reasons, and sometimes it's hard to come in their clinical duties, whether it's a nurse or a physician. Do you think that for those who have a research background, who do like science, who like research, who've done research in their home countries, do you think that your current position in industry, for example, is something that people could aim for, that they could use their medical and nursing or their healthcare background to come and help collaborate in industry? Do you think that that's a viable option?
I think so, especially when you had a previous experience as a clinician, which for me, I think it empowers me. It makes me feel more credible, because it's not only that, okay, I know the theory and the books, which is valid, of course, but I can also wear my hat as a clinician and understand a question because I've already been in that position.
Yeah.
So absolutely, I think that every experience is valid. I feel fortunate, Professor, that we'll talk more about that, but I would say in a nutshell that during my bachelor's degree as a nurse, I wanted to have an experience in every type of support of patient care. So I've worked in clinical trials. I've worked as home care nurse. I've worked as like a teacher, but also I've worked as the critical care, ICU, emergency room.
You've done a lot. Yeah.
That helped me understand
the clinician side of things. Okay.
Yeah.
But you've also done a lot of research. Let's talk about your background, how you came to the United States, what was, school like. And so where are you from, first of all, and then where did you go to nursing school? Let's start there.
So I'm from Rio de Janeiro, the city of Rio de Janeiro, in
Carioca.
Rio de Janeiro state. Yes, I'm Carioca. I earned my bachelor's degree at UFRJ, Universidade Federal of Rio de Janeiro, Federal University of Rio de Janeiro. And specifically, I wanted to go to that university because at that time, when I was choosing the university to go, I knew that they would focus a lot on research since the beginning, since your first semester as a nurse in nursing school. So I started that in 2004. And since then, every semester, you have to publish something related to whatever your study. So, for example, the first semester, the type of we were learning about pediatrics, but more about school kids, toddlers. So we had to publish something about that. So the second semester was something related about the workers' laboral health.
Okay.
So you learn how to write. So you start learning how to write an article or to publish, even though it's an internal student event, but it keeps training you.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's really great.
And I love it.
Training.
Yeah, so that was a great training. So,
and at some point in your graduation, did you also scale in terms of research productivity, like publishing papers in index journals or going to conferences? Like, when did you start, or did you get more involved with research as you went along?
I remember my first conference was on my second year as a nurse. Was actually related to workers' healthcare, something about that. And I went on my own. I think it was the first time I left Rio de Janeiro. I went to São Paulo, was to attend that conference, and I presented a poster. Then by my, so I'm talking about 2005. Okay, yeah. We didn't have smartphones and access to internet as we have nowadays, and so since that time, what I understood was that how do I showcase my name? How do I showcase my productions? It's through publication.
That's research.
Research.
Yeah. I tell our students all the time. They get involved in doing research in medical school. Like a lot of our listeners are medical students and doctors, and they forget to publish. Like they do research, like in Portuguese we call iniciação científica.
Yeah,
like it's like a research project in medical school or nursing school. But they don't publish, and then that's not helpful. Like you actually have to go to conferences, present your work, you have to publish in journals, have your name on PubMed. Like those things will put you out there, will make your CV strong.
Yeah, I also had a scholarship, I just recall now, from Extensão Universitária.
Yeah.
I also I had a scholarship for that, and I forgot what I was going to say, but yeah. So I was always involved, and also I was always asking and talking to the professors. I remember now what I want to say. I think if you think, my study idea is not that much, I need to think about something too big. No, everything is important. Even like, if you can start with a small pilot study.
Yeah, you can
and publish.
You can publish like less relevant papers, but you learn in the process, and you get better and better over time.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally right.
Yeah.
And when you graduated nursing school, you worked as a nurse. Did you also go into research right away? You told me that you worked in so many different areas.
Yeah, also as an intern. But my first job, I graduated in 2008. At that time, I was an intern in a clinical trial center in Rio de Janeiro, and then they hired me as research. Wow. So I was hired as a study coordinator nurse.
Okay.
In studies in oncology and hematology. So I worked there, counting with the internship, I'd say like 2-3 years.
Okay.
Which was amazing. I learned so much about the clinical trials and when a site initiation or monitoring so amazing. But at the same time, I wanted to see patients. So I had my office on the side. So I had my Monday to Friday job as a clinical trial center, but I would see patients on the weekends that would have a bad sores or ostomy. I always loved that area. So I was also involved with professors that were doing research in ostomy and wound care. So I was able to
do both, the research and the clinical care. And then why did you come to the United States? Why did you decide to leave that career behind and come here?
Let's see if I can do a good job connecting the dots. Okay, so so I always try to connect the research, my work in research, with the clinical practice. So years later, I earned my master's degree, and I started teaching. And actually, during my master's degree, I kept publishing in international conferences in health economics, which then was an area that I fell in love with. So I presented a poster in cost assessment in different types of dressing for bed sores. I think 1 year later, 2 years later, a company in the United States reached out to me asking for my support as a consultant to help launch their products in Latin America. I was already fluent in English. I was already fluent in Spanish. So language helps. Like language opens doors in your life, right? And I'm fascinated meeting new people and learning about different healthcare settings. Anyway, so I started working as a consultant. So I was coming back and forth from Brazil to the United States. And one day, in the personal life, things were not going well. I was in a relationship that worked while it worked. So I was like, I think I'm going to start a new beginning. And I received a lot of support from my peers in the United States while I was presenting some work here through that period of my personal life.
You had come to the United States?
I came, So, oh my gosh, let's see if I can do a good job. So I was in the United States presenting some work as a consultant. But during that time, I was going through a divorce. And I was really emotionally very sad, I was devastated. But from the professional life, I was thinking with my colleagues, the peers from the United States, you have a good resume, you have a good background, you have a good experience. Why don't you stay? And I was like, I looked for a lawyer, an immigration lawyer, while I was staying here as a tourist, for 1 month.
I see. Yeah. You came to a conference?
I came for a conference.
And then you stayed a little bit.
Yeah. No, I came for a conference. And then at that time, I was like, okay, I found a number of immigration officer, and I applied right away. I had one suitcase with my conference clothes. Yes.
What year was that?
2017.
Wow.
I had high heel shoes. I didn't have sneakers. I didn't have anything. I was ready for a conference.
You just came for the conference.
I just came. But I was like, if I'm going to start a new life, I'm going to start a new life in the United States, place that I always loved. I have a lot of publication. I have a lot of work here to do. It's not going to be easy because I didn't know anyone. One thing is to have peers, but another thing is to have people that if you're sick, they can go to the hospital with you. Yeah. And I didn't have that. Yeah. So I never overstayed. I did everything by the book. In 3 months, I got my work permit.
Wow, so you applied for a green card?
No, I applied for 2 things at the same. It was the work permit with the green card, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
But
I self-sponsored.
Yeah, but you self-sponsored your green card petition.
Yes.
Okay, that's incredible. That's incredible. And you, which pathway did you do? You did EB1, I think you're telling me,
correct?
Right?
Yeah.
So can you walk us through a little bit of what components of your career or your curriculum were important for you to get the self-sponsored green card?
Professor, it was everything. Every publication, every certificate, every article. I have article in books. I collected everything and I put on a folder that it was this thick with all my academic
like hundreds of pages, right?
It was hundreds of pages.
Yeah.
And so I sent articles that had my picture featured.
Yeah.
I put there. And I also had some letters of professors in the United States who I worked with in collaboration. And they wrote references stating that I do a good job, and that's how it is.
The citations are also important,
yes,
right?
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything. Even the small, the big, everything I produced, I included there.
Yeah, so this is an important point for listeners interested in coming to the United States and sorting out these immigration issues. If you are a healthcare professional, like a doctor, a nurse, or a pharmacist, or a dentist, applying for green cards self-sponsored, as Ana did, requires that you essentially be a researcher, that you've published a lot of work. People or the USCIS or immigration services will value in these applications publications, citations, references from others talking about how relevant you are to your field. And the best way to prove that is through publications and citations. There's other things too, like Ana mentioned, being cited in the literature, like lay literature, like when they interviewed you and put your picture on the paper. That is very helpful. I had one in my career interviewed by Medscape that I also use, for
Fantastic.
example. So if you're thinking about self-sponsoring, you have to really have strong research and publication.
Yeah, I was also part of the editorial board to review articles. So I already had that volunteer work.
These are all important. Working as a judge of others, that's what serving as a peer reviewer fills out that checkbox. That's also very important. Yeah. Good. How long did the whole process take, the application?
2000, I would say 18 months.
Until you got your green card?
Yeah.
Okay, but you had the work permit early on.
Yes, correct. Okay. After 3 months. So 3 months after I applied, I was able to work.
Great. And when you got the work permit, you could get a job, but then it's a totally different thing from actually getting a job. Like, how did you sort that out and go find a job, whether it's in your area or anything else to begin with?
Oh, yeah, you're right. It's two different things, right? So I use LinkedIn, and there's always you apply, and because of I'm fluent in 3 languages, I applied for a job. At that time, I was not in Massachusetts. Just to let you know, I was in another state. I was in Virginia.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so I got a job in a bank in Massachusetts, because they were looking for someone who could speak English, Portuguese, and Spanish. And, we are PhDs.
Yeah.
Don't want to brag, but we can learn most everything.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was an underwriter.
Wow.
Yes, I was assessing credit reports and also assessing cars, because it was specialized in car loans. Oh. So I had to learn how to assess the car that is being sold and things like this. And I'm so grateful. I worked there for 7 months. I'm very grateful. Very, very, very much. I'm very grateful. That was the job that helped me get food on my table. Because by the time my savings were like...
almost gone.
Yeah.
You have to pay the bills, right?
Oh, yeah.
And during that time, you started looking for opportunities and jobs in your field.
Yes, I was. I never stopped, but I'm also realistic. So, okay, I need a job. And once you have your bills covered, you can feel a little bit more relaxed, a little bit, not that much, to look for a job in your field. Then I was able 7 months later to get a job based on my PhD in Boston. So then things were like more easy.
Nice, very good. And what was that first job in industry here in the U.S.?
It was in a startup. It was a medical software. It's I don't know how it's going now, but at that time it was a predictive analysis of cardiac arrest of patients in the pediatric critical care. It's very specific. So my role, I was a clinical specialist. My role was to visit pediatric hospitals across the U.S., also in Canada, to train the nurses, the physicians, to understand how the software works. So it was very nice.
At any point in this journey, Ana, did you feel like, what's the right word, that you just, like, how your perception of like coming from Brazil and like the language barrier, obviously you speak very well English, but then also not having done, being a new country, a new system, did you, we were talking about earlier about like just being empowered, just like that self-confidence. Is this always something that you have, or did you have to work on it and like you felt like, oh my God, am I going to be capable of doing this job? I guess that's the question.
Every single day, until nowadays, which I think is good because it keeps us humble and always open to pursue new knowledge.
Yeah.
Right? But it's very stressful. So I'm not gonna die. I'm not gonna deny it's every single day. It's still struggle, but I think when we talk with peers like yourself, like Bruno or like Veronica, other people who are in the same situation, I can understand that we all go through the same struggles, yeah. And when we support each other, it helps. It's so important. And I think, I don't know, I think that in life we should help people regardless, and we should always understand our place, where we stand.
Yeah.
No, I actually don't want to be too confident. I think that could be dangerous.
Being
don't
too
know.
confident is dangerous, but also I want to highlight the opposite too, that it required courage to do a lot of the things that you did.
Yeah.
I mean, you were going through a hard time in Brazil, you said. You came here for a conference. You decided to stay. You had to apply for a green card. You had to figure out, how to get money to pay the bills, then transition into your career in the United States. So that requires a lot of courage of always reinventing yourself and looking for the next adventure.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think I've always been brave for this way. Brave. And this I can acknowledge. I acknowledge that.
Yeah.
I always believed that my education was the key to open doors. So I knew that things wouldn't be easy in the beginning, which is normal. People don't know who I am. In Brazil, people know who I am. Here, who am I?
Yeah.
I need to build up a name, a reputation.
Yeah.
So what I can say, I always believed on my experience and my knowledge and my credentials, and I want to work. You cannot be lazy.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
You need to go do it, do the best you can, and it's one day at a time.
Yeah, get things done.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. What type of jobs have you had here in the United States since joining that first startup, you said?
So I was a clinical specialist at that startup. Then less than 2 years later or less, I was a medical science liaison in a medical device company focused in wound care, wound and tissue repair. I worked there for 3 years and a half, and then I transitioned as a medical science liaison in pain management. So I'm in pharmaceutical now, but focused in pain management. During that time, I didn't stop my education, my PhD. I earned a certificate in neuroscience because I want to learn something new. I've worked in wound care for so many years since Brazil. I want to learn something new. So I earned my certificate in neurosciences, and then once I joined this company in pharma, in pain management, I earned another certificate in pain management from Universidade Albert Einstein.
Nice.
Yes.
Okay.
Very great.
You don't stop studying.
I don't. I'm thinking about neuropsychiatry probably next year.
Very good.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And what advice do you have for people who want to follow in this journey? Like that type of person that I was saying in the beginning, they are clinicians, maybe they've worked 10 years in Brazil or another country in the world, and they're like, oh, I'm a little bit disappointed about the career here. I want to explore new things. And they're considering coming to the United States for a position like is yours, like working in research. What advice have you learned in this pathway that you think would be translatable to them?
Professor, I would say that things happened because I was doing my current role, whatever it was, with passion. And even when I was working in a bank, I didn't stop publishing. I kept my work as a consultant.
Wow.
Yes. So I think that if you want to start a new career, you need to you need to be humble and understand that to get from point A to point B, there are so many other steps and barriers, but don't give up. But try to slow down because you may get, you may say, oh, it's too difficult. No, but think one day at a time.
One step at a time.
One step at a time. I don't know if they make sense.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think you have to have that initiative. You have to have the ambition, the desire, the passion to get there. But yeah, one step at a time.
Yeah, and ask, make connections, be nice, be good, and always try to pay back because then things just happen.
Yeah, I work hard and be kind to people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I often get asked by medical students a lot with like how to stand out as a resident or how to do well in medical school, and it's always about the same characteristics: is you have to work hard or study hard or whatever phase of training you're in to really apply that the dedication and work ethic. And then you have to be nice. You have to help other people. You have to teach. I think teaching is a very valuable in our environment. And then in your case, and for a lot of people, doing research, I think, is really key. I think what you do today, being involved in research, in industry, in clinical trials, I think a lot of this started way back when you were like a nurse student and you were learning how to write and learning the skills to do research. I think it's very important.
Yeah, and also the English, like practicing, because I remember that during nursing school, we had some books of microbiology, for example, that they didn't have many copies in Portuguese, but the copies in English were always available. So I would take the copies in English to study for exams, even though it would take me longer, but it was a good way to practice your brain. I think so.
I always studied in English books too. I think it's very helpful and it's a good advice. What's next in your career, Ana? Like what are the next episodes of this adventure?
I think I'll never retire because I love this, connections and talk. I love teaching, so my job as a medical science liaison is fascinating. I also learn a lot. I'm not afraid to say that I don't know. We cannot know everything. We learn every single day. But for next steps, I'm very happy what I do. I want to become more knowledgeable in the field of pain research, neuroscience in general. But I'm thinking about being able to practice as a nurse, but in mission trips.
Okay.
So I have many. There are many physicians that I met through my work that they do those mission trips, and I would love to go there. So some of them go to Brazil on a mission trips, or they go to Africa, and I would love to join them. So, but I haven't practiced for quite a while. So I'm thinking about validating.
How does it work to validate the nursing degree in the U.S.?
Oh my gosh, it's so difficult. But the good perk, if you will, of living in Massachusetts is that Massachusetts, they have a program through Bunkin Hill Community College called Welcome Back, and they have some personnel who would be a case manager on case of those immigrants who were nurses in their country of origin and want to practice in Massachusetts. So for my case, I want to practice only as a volunteer for those mission trips. So I think it's they're helping me through that. So I just started.
But essentially you have to take some exams?
Yes, there is an exam. So first you need to take an exam to English, like a TOEFL. Then you need to send all your transcripts, histórico escolar, ementa, the syllables, everything.
Yeah.
And then the board of nursing will tell you, okay, you can take the NCLEX, the board exam to have your license.
So that's a board on a nursing board?
Nursing board. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I bet that's a hard exam.
Yes, it's general. I need to study again many things. It will be fun because I'm not in a rush.
Right.
I'm not in a rush. It's just like when it's time, I'll study, I'll excel, and I'll be able to give it back. This is what I want. I think the goal is to give back. I miss giving back to humanity. Being kind as a clinician. Everybody in the clinical team is important. We cannot work alone. Physicians, nurses, pharmacists, physiotherapists, we all need to work together. So I think that I just want to give my 2 cents in contributing those who don't have access to healthcare.
Great. Yeah. No, that's a beautiful thing. I wish you all the success in that.
Thank you.
It's going to be fantastic to circle back to also being a clinical nurse, after all the great things you're doing in industry. Just again, to wrap up this discussion on a medical science liaison, because a lot of our audience is going to be interested in this. Can you give us just an overview of the initial salary generally for a medical science liaison? I'm sure it varies with experience and also which industry you're working for. But as on average, the early career professional who's starting out in that field, more or less,
Yeah, it really depends on the type of industry, pharma and medical device.
Okay.
It depends. But in the beginning, it could be around 130K a year.
Yeah.
But this is it is even considered a little bit low.
Yeah.
But it's realistic.
Yeah. That's a great salary.
Yeah, it's a great salary.
I mean, as a beginning salary.
But it's a very beginning, very.
It's just so people have an understanding.
A beginning, sorry to cut you off, Professor, but a beginning and in general in medical device.
Okay.
Because pharma, in general, they would only hire those who has more experience, so the salary would be more than that.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah,
I thought it would be higher for medical devices, but I guess pharma even more.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So that's definitely enough for you to have a middle class life in Massachusetts, even with a high cost of living. Just so you get some perspective, a resident salary, as an internal medicine resident or cardiology fellow, is typically around 70 to 80,000 a year. Some places, other states, around 60,000 a year. So that's a really great salary for an early career professional.
Yes. And I think another thing I would say, back in my career, I always wanted to work in pharma because I think that you are able to help patients in a different perspective. But in Brazil, at least, for a nurse, you don't see nurses easily breaking into the pharma industry in Brazil. Yeah. Mostly are pharmacies, right? So, but I never let that affect me because I knew I had the knowledge, I have the language. It's just a matter of being patient, keep doing my work, studying, gain more knowledge and more experience, and that's it.
Amazing. Yeah. What a beautiful story. Congratulations,
Ana.
Professor. Thank you so much for coming on. You have an inspiring story.
Thank you
and also show a way for, again, people who are interested in coming to the United States and maybe working for industry, but using your medical background as a potential medical science liaison for pharmaceutical companies, for device companies. So thank you again for coming on. One final word of inspiration for everyone who wants to follow in your footsteps, or maybe
never give up.
Yeah, that's great.
Trust yourself.
That's great advice. So guys, this was MetaCast, the podcast of the Meta-Analysis Academy. Don't forget to subscribe, check out our other episodes, and also join the waitlist for the Meta-Analysis Academy so you can learn how to do great research with autonomy to advance your career. Remember how research was important for Ana as a student, as a nursing student, then in the meetings that she attended, applying for a green card, getting her position as a medical science liaison. Research transforms careers. Make sure you do that. All right, thank you, Ana.
Thank you, Professor. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.